Welcome to this deep dive, which is episode 12 of the podcast, The Future of Organizational Memory, How AI Will Transform Enterprise Knowledge. Grab a seat here at the booth with us.
Yeah, pull up a chair.
It's just really nice to unwind in a quiet spot like this after, dealing with corporate headaches all day. And tonight we're unpacking a massive stack of research about corporate amnesia.
Which is such a fascinating topic. I mean, glad we clocked out, but I've been thinking about this all day.
Right, me too. So let me just start with a number for you. $31.5 billion.
It's just a staggering amount of money.
It's insane. That is how much money the largest global companies just bleed every single year simply because they forget what they already know.
Yeah, and the craziest part to me is that this $31.5 billion, it isn't being lost in some massive, catastrophic event. It's evaporating in these completely mundane daily moments.
Exactly.
It's literally the corporate equivalent of walking into a room and forgetting why you went in there, but scaled up to a multinational, multi-billion-dollar problem.
Yeah, I was reading through the stack of sources earlier today, and there's this scenario that perfectly captures that feeling.
Oh, the video ethnography one.
Yes. So imagine your team needs to review this video ethnography study the company did 2 years ago to see how customer behavior has shifted.
Right.
You know it happened, you know it cost an absolute fortune, but the original researchers, they left for another firm.
Of course they did.
Right. And no one remembers what software platform they used to record the interviews, the discussion guides, the prompt sheets. They've completely vanished.
It's gone.
All the context has evaporated, and it leaves you with absolutely no choice but to just start from scratch. It's so frustrating.
It's infuriating. But, that scenario really illustrates the fundamental architecture of forgetting. Because to understand why companies lose that information, we really have to look at the psychology of human memory.
Okay, lay it on me.
So there's this psychological concept. It actually dates back to 1885, but it's consistently confirmed by modern studies, and it's known as the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve.
Ebbinghaus, right.
Yeah, and it demonstrates that without active intentional reinforcement, the human brain drops 77% of what it learns within just 6 days.
Wait, 77% in less than a week?
Less than a week.
Huh.
Because, the brain is an energy conservation machine, right?
Okay.
If a neural pathway isn't being used, synaptic pruning occurs just to save metabolic energy. Your brain just dumps it.
Wow.
Now, scale that biological reality up to an entire enterprise. The dominant model of organizational learning treats knowledge transfer as a one-time event.
Like a lunch and learn or something.
Exactly. You attend a training session, you hold a post-mortem after a project, you write a summary report, the knowledge is delivered exactly once, and then it's just left to naturally decay.
I have to push back a little here, though, because I get the biological decay of memory, but aren't we living in, the golden age of documentation?
Oh, we definitely have a lot of documents.
Right. We have shared cloud drives, we have endless wikis, mandatory post-mortem documents for every project. I mean, I document literally everything.
Sure.
It feels like buying a round of drinks here at the bar and, leaving the receipt in a drawer. It's documented. Shouldn't that solve the forgetting curve?
See, it feels incredibly logical to assume that. But the research identifies that exact assumption as the storage fallacy.
The storage fallacy. Okay.
Yeah, companies consistently confuse the act of capturing knowledge with the act of actually retaining institutional memory.
So they're confusing, a museum with a working engine. A museum has everything documented and archived perfectly behind glass, but it doesn't actually power the vehicle.
That is a phenomenal way to frame it. I love that. A lessons learned document sitting in a folder that no one ever opens. It's dead information. It's an archive, not a memory.
That makes a lot of sense.
And mechanically, this storage fallacy is driven by the difference between single-loop learning and double-loop learning.
Okay, what's the difference there?
So single-loop learning happens when a project fails, and the company responds by simply tweaking an action within their existing framework.
Like realizing a client presentation fell flat, so the big takeaway is just, make the font bigger on the slides next time.
Precisely. You adjust the thermostat without questioning why the house is cold in the first place.
Got it. Just slapping a Band-Aid on it.
Exactly. Double-loop learning, however, is when an organization actually stops and questions the underlying assumptions that produce the failure. Like, why are we pitching to this specific client demographic at all? Is our entire market thesis flawed?
Oh, I see. That's a much deeper level of reflection.
Right, but most organizations are deeply stuck in single-loop mode. They produce mountains of documentation. Instead of engaging in systemic reflection, they build these massive silent archives and then stand around wondering why the exact same mistakes happen every quarter.
So if filling up hard drives with PDFs doesn't solve the problem, it means we are fundamentally misunderstanding what corporate knowledge actually is.
Completely.
We treat it like tangible files in a cabinet. But looking at the research, organizational memory is actually broken down into 3 highly distinct layers, right?
Yeah, and we really have to map those layers if we want to stop the bleeding. So the first layer is documented knowledge.
The easy stuff.
Exactly. The explicit material you were just talking about. The formal records, the HR policies, the data sets, media files, it's the easiest to capture.
The museum artifacts.
Right. Then the second layer is undocumented knowledge, which is frequently referred to as tacit knowledge.
Okay, tacit knowledge.
This is human intuition. It's knowing who to actually call in IT when the server crashes. Because the official manual says to reboot, but the tacit knowledge is knowing you have to unplug the secondary drive first because of a weird hardware quirk from 2018.
Oh man, every company has one of those quirks.
They really do.
Right.
It's also the nuanced dynamic of a specific client relationship or an experienced manager's ability to just make a split-second decision based on years of pattern recognition.
Which you cannot easily distill into a bulleted list on a wiki.
You really can't. It's just in your head. And then the third layer is embedded knowledge.
Embedded. How is that different from tacit?
So embedded knowledge is woven into the architecture of the company itself. It's the culture, the shared internal jargon, the collective mental models. It's the deeply ingrained routine of how work actually gets done on a Tuesday afternoon, completely regardless of what the employee handbook claims.
Okay, wow. And when you break it down like that, the statistics in this research become terrifying.
They really do.
Because it says a massive 42% of institutional knowledge resides solely with individual employees.
Almost half.
Nearly half of a company's operational capability exists only inside human brains. And the financial cost of that attrition is brutal.
Oh, the replacement cost is wild.
Yeah. When a key person walks out the door, it takes up to 2 full years and costs 213% of their salary to get a new hire up to that exact same level of contextual, tacit understanding.
It's a massive vacuum. When they leave, the knowledge leaves.
It totally makes me think of a legendary rock band. Like, imagine the lead guitarist quits. Losing the raw musical talent is bad enough, obviously. But then you realize the guitarist also took all the unwritten sheet music in their head, the tour manager's personal cell phone numbers, and like the secret handshake to get past the venue security.
Right.
You haven't just lost a guitar player, you have lost the operating system of the band.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And what really accelerates that loss today is the modern push toward decentralization.
Oh, like remote work and global teams.
Exactly. If your organization has offices in, say, London, Sydney, and Shanghai, you are inevitably creating intense knowledge silos. Geography fractures embedded knowledge.
Because they aren't chatting at the water cooler.
Right. So the team in Shanghai might spend 3 months solving a really complex operational bottleneck. But because there's no living central memory, the team in London has no idea the solution even exists.
Oh no. So London
spends 6 months trying to solve the exact same bottleneck from scratch.
Which brings us to the ultimate measurement problem for this deep dive. If 42% of this knowledge is trapped in people's heads, and the rest is trapped in geographic silos, how do you even audit an invisible hemorrhage?
It's really difficult.
Because we measure revenue easily, we measure headcount easily. But how do you put a metric on a thought that has just vanished?
Well, it requires a complete philosophical shift in how management looks at data. Typically, companies just measure activity, right? Like how many people attended a mandatory seminar.
Right, checking the box.
Checking the box. But activity doesn't equal retention. The research actually provides a rigorous framework of 5 specific dimensions to measure the actual impact of memory loss.
Okay, walk us through the mechanics of that, because tracking the invisible sounds impossible to me.
It's not if you know where to look.
Yeah.
The first dimension is decision recurrence. This tracks how often the exact same category of failure repeats across different teams and time periods.
Okay, so how do you actually find that?
Mechanically, you look at project metadata and postmortems. If a specific type of software deployment gets delayed by the exact same security protocol oversight 3 times in 5 years, you aren't looking at bad luck.
You're looking at a quantifiable failure to pass down historical context.
Exactly.
So you're basically hunting for the ghosts of past mistakes and project delays.
That's exactly it. Now, the second dimension is the rediscovery rate. How frequently are teams spending capital to solve problems already solved elsewhere in the building?
Oh, this is where that incredible example from the sources comes in.
Yes, the engineering teams.
Yeah, there was a case where 3 separate engineering teams within the exact same enterprise spent 18 months independently building the exact same authentication module.
18 months.
18 months, and none of them knew the others existed. That blows my mind.
And if you look at how that happens mechanically, it is a perfect storm of silos. 3 teams, separate code repositories, separate Slack channels, and absolutely no central taxonomy connecting their workflows. They were literally spending salary dollars to rediscover fire.
That's painful. Okay, what's the third dimension?
The third dimension measures knowledge accessibility under pressure, because it isn't just about whether a document exists somewhere. It's about whether an employee can actually access it when the clock is ticking.
Right. Can you find it when the client is on hold?
Exactly. The data reveals that employees spend an average of 3.6 hours a day simply searching for information.
3.6 hours, that's almost half the workday.
Yeah, and that is just typing a query into a search bar. That is the friction of pinging 3 different people, waiting for time zones to align so Sydney can answer London, and digging through a sprawling email thread from 6 months ago.
Yeah, I've had those days. If it takes longer to hunt down the procedural documentation than to just recreate the work from scratch, your archive has failed.
Totally failed. So, the fourth dimension is knowledge attrition. This involves mapping network dependencies to identify single points of failure.
Like the 42% stat we talked about earlier.
Right. So if you analyze communication patterns and see that, say, 70% of a department's problem-solving queries eventually route to Sarah in accounting.
You realize Sarah holds the keys to the kingdom.
Exactly.
And if Sarah resigns, the entire department just halts.
It grinds to a halt. And finally, the fifth and most vital dimension, behavioral retention. Did a documented lesson actually change human behavior in the long term?
This has to be where the activity versus impact illusion is strongest.
It absolutely is. A standard HR dashboard might show a 100% completion rate for a new workflow training module.
Everyone clicks through the video.
Right, they let it play in the background. But to measure behavioral retention, you have to look at the actual workflow telemetry. Did the time it takes to process an invoice actually decrease 6 months after the training was implemented?
Are they actually using the new software paths, or did they revert to their old habits?
Exactly. If the telemetry shows no change in behavior, the organizational memory rejected the knowledge. Completely, regardless of that perfect completion score.
Wow. Okay, so we've diagnosed the disease of corporate amnesia, and we have the 5 dimensions to measure the symptoms. But the real turning point in the research is the cure.
Yes, the AI native companies.
Exactly. We are seeing the rise of what are called AI native companies, and I think we need to be absolutely clear here. We are not talking about a company just slapping a generic AI chatbot onto their intranet homepage and calling it a day.
No, not at all. AI native means the organization's core workflows are built natively on top of an autonomous organizational memory system. We are witnessing an incredible evolution in capability here.
Tell me more about that evolution.
Well, early artificial intelligence was entirely focused on IQ, processing data, running calculations, winning chess games.
Right.
But large language models, or LLMs, they're rapidly developing EQ, emotional quotient, and AQ, action quotient.
The shift from pure computation to EQ and AQ is fascinating. An AI with EQ can analyze the sentiment and communication style of an employee, right?
It can.
Like it might analyze the telemetry of a user's workflow, look at their terse email replies, and realize, hey, this person is juggling 3 overdue projects and their cognitive load is maxed out. And it can adjust its own interactions to be less demanding and more supportive.
And the AQ, the action quotient, takes it a step further. It doesn't just recognize the stress, it autonomously takes action.
Like what?
It might proactively reschedule that overwhelmed employee's lower priority internal meetings just to carve out deep focus time for them.
That's amazing.
But the real breakthrough for organizational memory is how these LLMs handle unstructured data.
The messy stuff.
Yes, the messy stuff.
The 90% of our day that doesn't fit neatly into a spreadsheet cell. The furious chat logs, the rough drafts, the random presentation notes.
Historically, capturing that tacit knowledge required humans to stop working, sit down, and manually tag data into neat hierarchical folders.
Which is tedious, so nobody did it.
Nobody did it. But an LLM can ingest massive amounts of chaotic, unstructured text and automatically weave it into a structured knowledge graph.
I used a metaphor earlier about the bar, and I think it applies perfectly here. Having an AI native memory system is like sitting at this booth with an incredibly wise, immortal bartender.
Oh, I like this.
Right. A bartender who vividly remembers every single conversation, every bad bet, and every triumph anyone has ever had in this bar over the last 40 years.
Okay.
And right as you are about to make a terrible wager at the pool table, he discreetly slides a napkin over to you that says, "Don't do it, that guy is a hustler."
That is a brilliant analogy. It perfectly illustrates a concept the research calls decision triggers.
Decision trigger.
Yeah. Mechanically, what your bartender is doing is utilizing semantic search. Traditional systems rely on you typing the exact right keyword into a search bar. You have to know what you're looking for.
Right, which means you're pulling information.
But an LLM understands the semantic shape of your current problem. It maps the context of what you were doing in real time.
So it shifts the dynamic from pull to push.
Precisely. You don't go searching through the archive, the system sits in the background, and the moment you start drafting a project timeline, it matches the semantic shape of your draft to historical data.
Okay, so what does it do?
It pushes a decision trigger to your screen saying, hey, the last 3 times we attempted a timeline like this, we faced critical supply chain delays in Q3. Here's the adjusted routing plan they used to salvage it.
The knowledge finds you at the exact moment of execution.
Yes.
I mean, I understand the mechanics of semantic search pushing the data to me, but I have to look at the practical friction of this.
Okay, what's the friction?
Who is feeding the immortal bartender? Like, if I still have to sit down on a Friday at 5 p.m. and write a meticulous, highly detailed summary of every nuanced decision I made that week just so the AI has material to learn from, the system will fail.
Right.
The friction of manual data entry is why the storage fallacy exists in the first place. Nobody wants to write the documentation.
That is the critical hurdle, and it is exactly why the end state described in the research is real-time knowledge capture.
Real-time knowledge capture.
The breakthrough isn't designing a system that politely asks employees to write better summaries. The breakthrough is removing the human bottleneck entirely.
Oh, so it's frictionless memory.
Exactly. In an AI-native company, the system monitors the digital exhaust of the work itself.
Digital exhaust. I like that phrase.
It transcribes the virtual meetings. It analyzes the code commits. It tracks the revisions in collaborative documents. It pieces together the context of how a problem was solved autonomously.
So it's just watching and learning.
Right. It generates the insights and updates the knowledge graph without anyone ever filling out a post-mortem form. You just do your work, and the organizational memory updates itself in real time.
It captures the tacit knowledge while it's still alive in the conversation, rather than waiting for it to decay in someone's head.
And that is how you finally flatten the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. You take the burden of retention off the biological brain and place it on a system designed never to drop a single neural pathway.
But, and I have to ask the skeptic's question here, if we hand our entire corporate brain over to an LLM, what happens when it hallucinates? Or when it acts on bias?
It's a massive concern. AI can absolutely replicate biases from its training data, and without human oversight, it can confidently present completely incorrect information as fact.
Right, which could be disastrous.
It could be. Plus, privacy and the security of proprietary data are huge hurdles when everything is being ingested. It requires human-AI collaboration, not just blind trust. The human still has to make the final call.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better. Let's pull all these threads together, though, because if you're listening to this and wondering what the actual mandate is for your organization tomorrow morning, the core takeaway is a massive paradigm shift.
It really is.
The goal is no longer to build a better library for your PDFs. The goal is to build a living corporate mind.
A system that scales contextual awareness, pushes the right historical lessons to you at the moment of decision, and fundamentally stops the bleeding of lost operational capacity.
We have to start throwing $31.5 billion into the void. We have to give teams their 3.6 hours a day back. Moving from archives to systems with EQ and AQ allows us to finally capture the brilliant, undocumented, messy reality of how our teams actually innovate.
You know, sitting here thinking about a perfectly frictionless, omnipresent corporate memory, it actually makes me a little nervous.
Wait, really? Why? That is literally the utopia we've been trying to solve for this entire deep dive.
Well, think about it. If an autonomous AI system becomes so incredibly perfect that a company never forgets a single past failure and it perfectly warns employees away from deviating from established protocols, do we lose the happy accident?
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought of that.
Right, because human innovation is so often born from rule breaking. It is born from a new employee not knowing that we tried that exact thing 3 years ago and it failed catastrophically. So they try it again with a slightly different mindset and they end up changing the industry.
Because they didn't know they weren't supposed to?
Exactly. If an organization has a perfect living memory, constantly jumping in to prevent people from repeating past mistakes, how does it ever allow itself to dream up something totally illogical?
Wow.
How does a perfect memory leave room for the irrational leaps that actually drive true progress?
Does perfect memory kill the happy accident? That is an incredible realization to end on. Definitely something for you to mull over as we wrap up tonight. Thank you so much for joining us at the booth. We always appreciate having you here to explore these ideas. We will catch up with you on the next deep dive. Take care.